Well, hello and welcome to our preview of racing on Saturday at Sportingbet Park Sandown. Great to have Steve Moran from Best Bets joining me again. I've come off the bench. It's been a little while. How's the form been?
Oh, the form's been reasonable. I was counting the cash last week with Juliet's Princess until that man Moody bloused us on the line, but form's been okay.
Okay, well, let's hope you're in fighting form this week then. As we said, we're off to Sandown, and we've got two legs of the Houlihan Championship here, the Australian Hurdle, Australian Steeple. Gee, this Hurdle looks a good race.
It does. There's plenty of depth, and that man, speaking of that man, Stephen Pateman, of course, who has a near 50% winning strike rate to rides this season, which is quite phenomenal. He's not the only boy out there with some talent, but he's managing to engineer very cleverly to get himself on the pick of the rides most of the time as well. And he looks on paper to probably have the pick of the rides again this weekend. He's on Palmiro, of course, in the hurdle, and he probably could have ridden any one of 4 or 5 in that race. I think he's the measuring stick. He was able to get the job done at Mornington despite making a mistake, and that was after a comprehensive win at Warrnambool. So I think he's the horse to beat, Palmiro.
Palmiro, what about this race? As I said, it's got a little bit of depth, so we might look at this one in a touch more detail. What about your multiples?
Well, I think got to take care for the very obvious reasons that he stretched Palmiro to some degree at Mornington, and Seeking the Silver comes through the same race. Tuscan Fire is an interesting runner for Dan O'Sullivan, just absolutely flying back to the flat last start, was able to win comprehensively. He's probably the emerging horse. Maybe he still lacks a little bit of seasoning, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was highly competitive. And, you know, there's 4 or 5 decent hopes in this hurdle. It's a great race.
Well, you mentioned Stevie Pateman. He hasn't won an Australian Steeple. Can he do that on Saturday?
Well, you've got Ferrier and El Karam. El Karam, of course, got the better of the former at Mornington. There's a 3-kilo swing in the weights in favour of Stephen Pateman's mount here, and it might be enough. And I've tipped him, but not with any enormous conviction. I doubt there'll be a great deal between them. I think Megapixel, who'll roll forward, is the horse who could spring a little surprise, and maybe the forgotten horse is Taboogie Nights, who was so impressive at Oakbank, and he made a bad mistake about a lap out at Warrnambool, and I think he probably put the pen through that run. He might be a little underestimated, but I'm going with the Pateman double, which I grant you is pretty predictable.
All right, what about your best bet?
Best bet, Rocking Force, race 2, number 2. Simply goes into the race with the best form for mine. Track was still rated pretty soft as we spoke this morning, but the forecast is not too bad. I think it'll get to the dead to slow range, and that will suit him, race 2, number 2.
Your best each way?
Best each way is race 6, number 10, Mr. O'Kieran, in the wrong part of the track at Warrnambool after a terrific win on Anzac Day. Can get the run of the race here. He was around $10 early markets, over the odds for mine. Back him each way.
You got a roughie for us at Sandown?
I've got a roughie, race 7, number 4, Miss Zoom. Patton ignored at Warrnambool. Terrific win last time. 1 run, Sandown Lakeside 1200. Ran Shopaholic to a nose. Was around $19, $20 when I last looked. Should be a third of those odds in my humble opinion. So I have something on Miss Zoom at the big odds.
Gee, the form's been good of those horses coming out of Warrnambool, hasn't it? Group 1 racing this weekend, again up north in Queensland there. The Oaks is the feature there. Plenty of Victorians in action. Who's the pick of them?
Well, good question. I don't know. There was a length and a quarter between the first 7 and the Roses. We've got a little bit of new blood with Red Typhoon most notably. Rock Hit, of course, for Peter Moody. Posta Restante, who comes through the Rough Habit rather than the Roses. But 6 of the past 7 winners have come through the Roses. Drawing wide's not a plus generally in this race. It might make it tough for Invest. I could make a case for any one of 10 or 11. Sean, I'd back something at double figure odds. I'll pluck one. Victoria, I thought a run in the Roses was good, but nothing would surprise me here.
Well, I know you've obviously focused on the form here, but before we finish up, do you have one you really like there at Queensland?
Oh, gee, look, I never tip shorties. I think Mental's a good thing. He'll around the $1.80 mark in the Guineas. I think there's only one horse in the race who could possibly beat him, and, you know, alarm bells. It's the stablemate freewheeling. I think he's a good thing, Mental. The form around him's absolutely fantastic. Pampalone running a very good 6th in the Doomben 10,000. A couple of others behind him have stepped out and won, so I'm pretty keen on him. We get to see Darren Weir with Wealth Princess, of course, and the Dane Ripper, and what a great job he's done with her. And must be something about this hyperbaric chamber and the treadmill and the hyperbaric stable down there. They're all flying for Darren Weir, and she's a very interesting runner. I think she can probably win again, but she's got some decent opposition from down south as well with Bonnie Mack and Sophie Spirit. So they all had up a terrific day, and Lights of Heaven might get a consolation prize in the Eagle Farm Cup.
Yeah, we'll cheer the Vicks on it proudly there. Well, that's been our look at Sandown. Great to have your thoughts also, Steve, on those features at Eagle Farm on the weekend. Good luck if you're having a punt.